Hey everybody, welcome to the Namra podcast. Russ Manxon here with David Gorham, a logo designer and brand identity specialist, our local friend in the chamber. We're going to talk to you guys all about branding today, so stay tuned. David, thank you for coming down here. Drove to Pawtucket after hours for me, so I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for staying after work.
Of course, of course. We met through the Wachusett Chamber, 6 months ago, at least now, maybe more. It was like over the winter for sure. Tell everybody what you do, and that'll provide us context for everything else we'll talk about later.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a graphic designer by trade. I specialize in brand identities and logos, as you mentioned. And I primarily work for small businesses in the Worcester County area. And, if they need help getting established with their brand, I, jump in and help them out with that stuff. I also do website designs, and I have a background in marketing and advertising design as well.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing this?
17 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 17 years professionally.
When did you start?
I started in 2006, right after upon graduating from college. I went to UMass Dartmouth. I know we share that as an alma mater. So I got a job at Davis Advertising in Worcester part-time while I was finishing up my degree at UMass. And I back then, I remember a friend of a friend gave me a number to call, and I called the art director directly, spoke to him in person. A couple weeks went by, he called me in for an interview. I didn't have a resume or anything. I just brought in my crappy, college portfolio and hoping for the best, and he decided to give me a shot with a part-time job until I graduated, and then I transitioned full-time. So I did that for a couple of years.
And so what were you doing in that job? 'Cause I like learning about what marketing was like back then. It's really good to reflect on the progression that we've made so far.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think how far it has progressed. It seems like not that long ago, but I guess it was. So back then I was doing mainly ad layouts. Their clientele was a lot of car dealerships in the area, so I was learning how to play with typography by changing prices on car ads and laying out, you flip to the classified section of the newspaper and it's just full of numbers and text, and with the car images in there. So I learned how to just be really good at layouts and get really quick at it. At the time we were using Quark Express, so that kind of tells you how old.
Don't know what that is.
Goes back. Yeah, exactly. It was the precursor to Adobe InDesign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it was a page layout program, and I think they still make the program available, but obviously Adobe's the big software company for my field. So yeah, it was mainly just changing prices on car ads and doing some layout work, and occasionally would get thrown a super creative project where I'm doing everything, from the beginning, but most of the time it was updating ads weekly, which was, at the time coming out of college, you always want to do something super awesome and super big, and here I was changing car ads and changing prices, and it's, looking back, that was probably the best education I could have gotten at that time, and I learned so much so fast on the job there to be able to transition into the next positions I've had after that.
Yeah. So what'd you do next?
So I was at Davis for a couple of years, and then I started freelancing for a sign and banner company based in New Jersey. So I was able to work from home and do that on the side from home, and then eventually that turned into a full-time job, so I had to leave Davis, and I went to do that. I did that for 5 years, and then from there I got a job working at in the safety supply industry at a company in Auburn called Masterman's, where I was initially their lead graphic designer and creative director, to put together their catalogs, their sales flyers, help out with all the internal marketing design, social media, website, email blasts, all that type of stuff. And then, so I was there for 8 years, and currently, for my day job, I work at a trade show design company in Worcester called Blue Hive, and I am the associate art director for their marketing department, and I do a lot of the similar stuff, creating pitch decks for their sales team internally and working on designs for their clients for the trade show booth side. And then, so my business, David Gorham Design, I do that on the side after hours on the weekends.
Yeah, love it. So when did you build your first logo?
Wow. Good question. My first logo that I can remember was in high school. There was a contest with the local newspaper for designing a logo for the town, and I grew up in Clinton, which is about half an hour north from Worcester. And they were having a logo contest, and that was one of the, and at the time I was in a graphic design class in high school, and that's kind of where the itch started for me getting into the field. And it was horrible. The logo was basically just a picture of the Wachusett Dam in an oval with...
it's always in an oval.
Yeah, it's always in an oval. And then it had the text for the town in an arch above it, probably made like kind of like in word art, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the font was something like it was like a stencil type military style font. Yeah, it was. So that was my first logo that I can remember.
I love it.
Yeah.
And since then, you've obviously gotten into deeper services other than just creating a logo. So can you talk about like the full scope of the brand identity package that you deliver, and the reason behind each piece of it?
Yeah. So yeah, it did start out just wanting to make cool looking logos, and eventually as my career progressed and I started getting into more of the marketing side, which kind of lends itself, into the branding side, I realized that it's not just about the logo. It's more than just the mark that identifies your company, although no less important, but it's also about how all the marketing pieces kind of work together as one entity out in the world. And the idea behind my practice is when I don't really do one-off logos anymore. If I'm going to build you a logo, I'm going to build you, I'm going to give you the fonts, the colors, the whole package, so that you can have that footing when you go out and market yourself in the world.
Go ahead.
So it wasn't just about the logo. It was about figuring out how to make these elements identifiable, even if there wasn't a logo on it. You could still tell based on the type style you use, the colors you're using, the way it's laid out. Through consistency of use of all these various elements that you put into your brand, you should be able to still recognize the marketing piece as coming from your company without having the logo be so big. The age-old joke of graphic design is make the logo bigger.
Right.
That's the client's number one request is I can't see it, make it bigger.
Right.
You shouldn't have to if the branding is done right.
100%.
You shouldn't even need the logo on there in some ways.
Yeah, and what I was going to say before, when I almost cut you off is, I imagine you do that now because you had experiences where you built just a logo for somebody and then you saw them take it out into the world and just totally butcher the use of it.
Oh, yeah.
You see that all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
And eventually it's like, well, what's the point of the logo if you're just going to do like the worst graphics ever and the font isn't going to even close to go well with the logo or the font that was used in the logo. All that stuff needs to be complementary. The colors need to complement the logo, and the accent colors are all a part of that. Like everything matters.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. It still can happen now too. You can give them the whole brand guidelines of the instructions on how to use the various elements, and but a lot of times, from my experience working in the marketing field and the advertising field, things move quick, and that's one of my skill sets too, is I've been able to develop just working quickly, but also efficiently and accurately, and at a high quality level, because of the turnaround times. The projects that I work on are very short. Outside of brand identity, they're very short-lived. A lot of the marketing pieces, and yeah, I think just once you hand off that logo and brand identity to a client, they initially they're all excited about it and they are ready to use it, but then it ends up either going into the hands of their marketing department, or maybe they are the marketing department, and the CEO, and so they don't have time to, keep opening up that brand guide to read through it. So it's always going to be a struggle, unless, you're actually hiring people that for the internal marketing departments of those clients that you're not going to really have control over. And I think that's the fun in this too, is that once you're done with the brand identity, once you're done with the logo, you have to give it away. It's not yours anymore. You can't control it. You can just be excited by what you see, and how you see it in the world. I think that's kind of the thrill for me. Sometimes frustration, but mostly thrill. I mean, it's always exciting seeing your work.
Like out in the real world once it gets posted, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I have a story about that. Back when I was in the advertising company, another freelancing gig that I had was, so I was also in magazine design, catalog design. And so I went, before I went to UMass, I was at Quinn Sigmund Community College for 2 years, getting my associates, and I had a friend there who started a sports magazine. And this is kind of where I learned about branding. So initially the magazines were done really just on the cheap, and they looked that way. And then once I started working on them when I was going to UMass, I started learning more about branding, and I gave them a masthead, the logo on top of the cover, and a consistent look from magazine to magazine. And while I was at that advertising job, I went to lunch one day, and sitting there eating my sandwich, I noticed that there was a stack of those sports magazines in the corner. And I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And then the next thing I noticed was somebody came in, picked one up, and read it. And that was just the highlight of that day. It was
That's
just
awesome.
like, wow, it's actually working.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is such a grassroots passion for marketing that you just displayed right there.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. It's like it worked. I got someone.
And now you don't even see that because it's all online. Everything's digital, so you only see it, when it pops up in your feed. And still, that's exciting, but it's not as exciting when you get to hold the piece.
Yeah. It's rare, but on certain occasions, clients will say I know for a fact this person they said they saw the video and then they clicked and then they followed me, and 3 months later they bought something. And I'm like, yes, a true customer journey conversion.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
it is hard to
track. That's what's great about digital too, is that you can track all this stuff too. And having the marketing background, I do that all the time in my day job, and it's great seeing the impact or not seeing the impact, and then having to figure out why.
Yeah, that's equally, the fun part for true marketers, I would say. And it's something the clients don't really think about. No. The fact that, a lot of what we're doing is troubleshooting, brainstorming, problem solving. And it's not like you hired us and we are magicians. So it's often is trying something and seeing if it works. And then if it doesn't, knowing when to pull back and knowing how to strategically pivot, in whether it's ads, whether it's organic, logo design, anything. That's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's cool to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
So what I definitely want to ask you about, which you mentioned it when you walked in, and I was like, save it. You went to Africa.
I did,
with your wife.
Yes.
Tell me about that trip.
It was awesome. That's all you need to know. It was awesome. just go if you have the means. So we went to Kenya and Tanzania on a safari, and we saw every animal you could possibly think of. It was amazing.
So what prompted that?
My wife turned 40 this year, and that was her big 40th birthday trip that she wanted to take. And I was a little hesitant, but I mean, she's the big traveler, and I go where she goes, and it's always awesome. So I never really doubt it. But so she was like, "Yeah, this is what I want to do." And then all the way leading up to the trip, we're like, "Are we really ready for what are we doing?"
Yeah.
And on this trip, we knew like ahead of so we signed up with the tour group, Intrepid. They were really good, and we knew with the tour that we bought, we were going to be camping out in the Serengeti for a few nights, surrounded by the animals. And that was kind of the nerve-wracking thing.
How camping were you?
Like, we pitched a tent, and there's no fences, and you could hear the animals in the distance. You could hear the hyenas laughing. You could hear the lions roaring.
Whoa.
And the most nerve-wracking night was when, so after the Serengeti, we drove to another park called Ngorongoro Crater, and we were there for another safari. So that night we stayed over, and then we would go down into the crater to search for animals. And that night when we arrived, it was hours of driving, and that's most of the trip is just a lot of driving around looking for things. And everything we read about was saying that, like, oh, you may not see everything you want to see, but we saw everything. We saw the big five, the lions, buffalo, elephants, rhino, and leopard. So we saw those. But so we're at this crater. We get there around dinner time, and we go to the bathroom and freshen up, and then we come out of the bathroom and we turn around, look around the building, and there are just two elephants just hanging out, like as probably from me to that window,
Wow.
like just chomping on trees in the background. And then later that night we go to sleep, and we're woken up out of a dead sleep by the sound. It sounded like somebody was like walking on the crunchy grass, and we're like, "What the hell is that noise?" And then all of a sudden we hear the, and we're like, "Oh!" And then we hear a moo, and we realize that there's a herd of buffalo just grazing right by our tent, and you could
Oh my God.
hear the chomping. I have a recording if you want to hear it.
I do want to hear it. How can we play this?
I don't know.
Hold
Can
it
I
up to
pull
the
it
mic.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right. Hear the crickets.
Yeah, I hear the crickets.
Yeah, so that was just chomping,
okay.
ripping grass out of out of the
Oh my
ground
God.
right
Yeah, I
next
did
to my
hear it.
head on the tent.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's wild.
Yeah. So it was fantastic. We also got to have lunch and dinner a couple different nights in the villages with the locals, which was an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm.
So this trip also provided meals, cooked, like kind of camping out.
Yeah.
They would bring the meals. They'd cook them, and we'd help prepare them. And
Awesome.
we had a small group too. It was only 5 of us.
Oh, wow.
It was supposed to be 7, but 2 people didn't show up, and the bus we were on could hold like 20 people. So
Mhm.
it was great.
Bunch of
it
people
was
chickened out.
Yeah, it was like we had a tour to ourselves. It was,
Wow,
it was so
that's
cool.
wild.
And so there was no like fighting for space on near the window trying to get a picture.
That's awesome. So
and
you
like
got
I said,
the full experience.
Yeah, and we got, like I said, I have over like 15,000 photos that I'm still going through today. But hopefully I'll get around to posting those, and everybody can see them. But it was
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely a trip of a lifetime, and I'd highly recommend, if you have the means, definitely go.
Man, I never thought about it, but it sounds unreal.
It is, and it's another thing that just fuels the creative side of me. Traveling. Going to different countries, even different towns, even coming down here to Pawtucket.
Yeah, just getting out of the house.
Yeah. It's all fodder for the next client project.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it comes in or, gets worked into the designs, but it just all informs, everything.
Yeah,
and
just keeps you active.
Yeah, and that's one thing I learned about in college, coming out of UMass. They were very heavy on the conceptual side, and I remember being in class thinking, like, I don't know enough of everything yet. Like, it seemed like with graphic design, you need to know more than just design. You need to know about, psychology.
That's why I loved marketing. I took a Psych 101 class freshman year, and I knew I wanted to do some business track, but I went in business undecided.
Yeah.
And it was a psych class that made me want to do marketing, like, hands down. I was like, that is so sick. Like, how people think is so cool.
Yeah, and I'm married to a psychologist, so
there you go.
She studied forensic psychology,
That's
but she's a thinker, and I love her for it, because that, again, influences my work, and she's a good person to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, I was going to say she must play a part in the
design. Yeah, and tell me when things are wrong, and she doesn't like them, so she's my sounding board, which is great. You know, I think everybody needs one of those.
That's awesome. What sort of consultation do you go through with a client? Because obviously, a lot of times logo design and especially brand identities can get pretty pricey, and it's totally worth it if it's done right, and then, like we talked about, like, actually implemented right. You know what I mean? Hands down, worth it. But it's an intimate sort of experience that you have to have with the client. We do the same thing with the social media management side. We need to know everything about you so we can truly, like, represent you online. What do you do consultation wise to learn about the client? When
a client comes to me with an inquiry, if it's a good inquiry, if it's more than just, hey, I need a logo, how much, if they're giving me details about what their project is, when they need it, why, I'll get back to them with a questionnaire, or get on the phone with them to kind of ask them, dig into their business and why they actually want to do this thing, and not necessarily get, I always need more information about the project I'm going to work on, but I also want to know if this is actually what they need, because if they're thinking they need a logo to get their business started, but they don't have anybody in their network, or they haven't really even written up a business plan or anything, maybe that's not the best place to start.
Maybe they don't need a full-blown brand identity yet.
Exactly. So
bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
I'm super glad you brought that up, because we have to have the same conversations on our end too.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need a banger video just yet, like, because who will see it?
Yeah.
Which is, a tough reality, but that's where everybody starts. We didn't invest in a good video for ourselves until, like, our 5th year, and we made it ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we just weren't ready to post that stuff. We did all cell phone content for ourselves for years and years, because we were organically building up the business. Eventually we'll come out with banger videos.
Yeah.
But every business is in a different stage, so that's super important that, like, you work that in.
Yeah. And I mean, so I have that conversation with them, and just try to suss out what they actually need, and then if it comes out that they actually do need to establish a brand, if they've been in business for a little while and they've been doing okay, and they could take that next leap to a more consistent look for all their marketing and all their visuals, then I will, put together my proposal for them. And I have a few different tiers where, it's the basic logo package, which is, logo, font, color, simple brand guide. And then it kind of goes up from there, digging into strategy and some minor copywriting if they need that, even like including websites into that. It's one of the reasons I love brand identity is because you can build upon it, from just getting started, businesses just getting established. There's always room for them to grow and move into other areas of design, so marketing and even going into social media and video and all that stuff. So it's it's just kind of just finding out what they need and helping them get there. Even if that means not working with me, pointing them in a different direction. Maybe they need, social media help, then I would pass them off to you, So it's really just having that initial conversation is super, super important.
Yeah. And that's for those of you out there who have never hired somebody in marketing, that is what you should expect from a really good professional in marketing. Because a lot of people will say, oh yeah, you need a logo, bang, here's the price, like we'll negotiate, we'll make it happen, boom, sold. But it's like, you didn't really need that. You know what I mean?
No, and I don't want to waste their time, you know? I don't,
yeah,
you know, it's,
and that's huge. That just like, ethically, that is a good marketer, you know, like somebody who approaches things from a consultative angle and says like, all right, really, what do you need? And, you know, you are also mentioned a good point too, that you're taking your time to qualify the client for yourself too. Make sure it's a good fit on your end. Because if they are just looking to price shop, you know, a logo, probably not the best fit. But if they're looking to actually build a relationship with somebody who can, you know, walk them through, you know, the true process, then you're great for that. So that's huge. Building a logo so that it can be like formatted for video. Do you take into consideration the fact that like maybe before you were building all full page flyers, but now it's like you need to work it into social media graphics. You need to work it into video, like lower thirds and things like that.
Yeah, I try and keep them as simple as possible because they need to fit on the, you know, all the digital devices, and they're probably going to be seen at a smaller size. And you kind of see this trend with logos now is, you know, if you look at, I'll take, you know, Apple as an example because they're just easy. If you look at where they first started back in the 80s, their logo is so intricate. It's illustrative. It has, I think there's like a, you know, Isaac Newton sitting under a tree with an apple hanging from it, and there's some like banner flourishes and ornate typography in it. That's not the Apple that we know today. You know, if you think of Apple, you think of just that simple symbol. And so over time, that has just evolved. And I think that's important with logos too, is that they need to evolve to the medium that you're using it with, you know. So with my logos, I always try and start there. I always try and start in the simplest form. I'm not an illustrator. I don't come from an art world. I'm a designer. And a big part of what I do is strategy. And it's taking the information that the client gives me and figuring out a way to make them the best mark possible for their brand that can transcend not only time, but all these different devices we have to use them on, you know. And it needs to be used, you know, in small size, large size. So the simpler, the better, but also it needs to be appropriate for, you know, for the brand personality. Yeah. You know.
What do you consider to be the actual logo itself? Like, say I have the icon, like the apple, but then Apple is written next to it. Do you consider the icon with the word to be the logo, or is the icon itself the logo?
So the icon is actually the symbol.
The symbol.
Yeah.
And the whole thing.
And the word is the word mark. And then the whole thing is the brand mark. I would kind of consider that a brand mark.
Okay, completely. So logo is actually just a layman's term.
I believe it means logo type. And I think it comes from, I think it's a Greek word, and logo translates to word in Greek. So it's actually means, you know, word.
The word.
So logo type is just like the name.
Okay.
The wording. But the symbol is what we think of as a logo. But logo stuck because it's catchy. You know, it's a short, catchy word. And so it's kind of universally used.
Yep. Okay, cool.
And I don't like to get into the nitty gritty with my clients on that, but like we can nerd out over it.
So the reason I ask is because I've had clients who send me not just the icon and the name, but also the phone number underneath, the slogan underneath, like the this, the that, like the 4 services listed, and they go, "Here's my logo," and I go, "No, that's not the logo. The logo is that weird little like rainbow thing in the background that's a symbol. So like, if you don't like that, you don't like the logo, like
so or they'll send you their business card and be like, "Here's my logo," and it has a picture of them on it or something.
Exactly. So that is actually that's a good little teaching moment there, that there are those separate parts, and you have to be happy with all of them because they're all used in different situations. Sometimes it like I mean, it's rarely just the name that you would put, but very often you're going to have just the icon on a graphic and not the full icon with name next to it.
Yeah.
So it's got to play both sides. It's got to look good in both ways. And there's proper and improper use of the logo too. So you don't rearrange it. Do you put that into the...
Oh, yeah. That's the funnest part about the brand guides is like messing up the logo to show them how not to use it. You know?
It's too ezy.
It is too easy, and it's too dangerous. I mean, it's with logos. I always find myself, if I'm redesigning a logo, I always find myself peeling it back, because a lot of times clients don't want to change the logo. They either have created it when they started the business, or somebody that they knew created it, and even though they say they want a new logo, they don't really want a new logo. They just want it to look like Apple. They can't look like Apple. They're not Apple. So what I find myself doing in a lot of cases is not creating a brand new mark for them, but I end up stripping away what they have to just the essence. Unless that doesn't work, and if that doesn't work in that case, I would propose a totally new concept, a new mark or a new word mark or something. But my whole design philosophy is less is more.
And often that's probably the case, right? Where it's like a logo that was built 10 or 15 years ago, and they do like the shape that it was supposed to be. Like, I like that it's a tree, that's the whole point. So it's like, all right, well, maybe it doesn't need a million branches and all the leaves. Maybe we can just make a little tree symbol that's like works.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at what Starbucks did, they took out the mermaid, and they just, now that's their logo. It used to be the mermaid surrounded by their name, in a circle. But
shrink it down and put it in the lower corner of a video, and it just looks like a weird circle. But if you make the shape more noticeable, then you can pick it up. So that's the key.
Exactly. And again, these changes happen over time with all these big brands. So you may look at Apple or Starbucks and be like, I want that, but it took them years to get to. It's not like that was the initial. I think with the only exception I can think of is Nike. Nike's logo started out as that chubby check mark. Although they did layer the name Nike on top of it, so it was a little bit more complicated than just the, but over time you could see the transition.
And so much market research goes into that. We've talked about that on this podcast about how like whatever company was, Apple or Target or some big company, put like $2 million worth of research into like deciding if they wanted like this little accent mark on a logo. And it's like so crazy, but it ends up being mass produced nationally. So if they can justify like we're gonna close like 0.001% more of our impressions because of this, and hey, like power to them.
Exactly. I mean, as far as colors and logos, I'm always I always start out in black and white. And I feel that if it works in black and white, it'll work in any color. And then, color's very subjective when we get into showing it to the client and talking with them about it. So I always like to present in black and white first, and then kind of figure out where their personality lies so that I can choose the appropriate colors. And a lot of that is instinct, and a lot of that is client's personal taste. But it's also, it also dips into psychology too. Is you don't want. Actually, at UMass, I learned that names in red in Korea mean that person is dead. So like, there's different meanings in different countries that you also need to kind of be aware of depending on the market you're working in. So it's those little things, you kind of need to do your research and be cognizant of before you put a color on a page, because people perceive color differently. They experience, I may like blue, but somebody else may not like blue for some reason. Those are kind of tougher conversations than the initial discovery phase.
Right. Yeah, when it gets subjective is when it gets really tough for us. Like dealing with clients, not dealing with them, working with clients who, it is subjective. Like, you could love something and they hate it. Yeah. And you could be super far apart, and then slowly you find a middle ground, or you just keep trying. Like, how many are you a sniper where you do the whole consultation and provide like one and say like, this is what I believe works, or will you provide like a spread of like 15 or 20 different logos to like kind of conceptually choose from and then narrow down from there? Because I've seen it done both ways.
Yeah, I've seen it done both ways. For me, if they're looking for options, I only go as far as 3. I'm not somebody that can make a million different designs.
Fair. Yeah. Time goes into each one.
Yeah, and but there are instances where I have made just one because the other versions I came up with I didn't feel were appropriate for the client. Mm-hmm. And if I show them one and they don't like it, or there's something about it that seems off, let's talk about it and we'll figure it out. And we'll get there. It's not that I'm showing them one and take it or leave it. It's, here's what I got. Let's discuss to, make it better.
Yeah, and it's all based on the conversations you've had before anyway. They've given you examples of brands that they like. Yeah. They've told you what they're looking for. So in some cases you can say, well, like, especially based on market research too. Like, I know that this is where all the other bigger brands are heading. Like, this is going to last you for 5 years. If you're really confident in that, we're the experts.
Yeah, I'll look at their competitors and kind of see what other people in their area are doing, locally, but also even nationally, because even though they may be a small business in the local market, they're still in some way competing with, the bigger brands out there that are more well known.
100%. Even if you're posting on social media, you're competing.
Yeah, exactly. So I do go into, research on that end, and I just try and get as much information as possible about, what they're going to be going up against before we even delve into the design side of it. It's not just, putting pen to paper right away. It's finding out as much information so that we can be completely informed, and that will send us off in an appropriate direction for their needs.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, the only other thing I wanted to talk to you about is kind of like separate, but just networking wise, because I know you've been around Central Mass your whole life, right?
Yeah, born and raised.
Yeah, so that's awesome. And we met at the Wachusett Chamber.
Yep.
And a lot of the other local media companies. So I wanted to know how you started networking in like the Worcester Central Mass area, because more people than I know.
That's good to hear, because I've only been doing, I guess, networking for the past few years. I started putting my, my nose to the grindstone in 2020, which was great because it was all, well, actually I started a little bit before then with going to Worcester Chamber events, and I don't know if it was just I was too green, but I kind of didn't, that kind of put me off a little bit. And then 2020 came and I figured I'd start it up again, but this time it was in a better environment because I was at home, so I was able to do it, Zoom. And that's actually how the first time I networked at the Wachusett Chamber was over Zoom. And
what event did they have on Zoom?
I think it was like a business after hours. It was on
just
Zoom.
During COVID.
Yeah, it was during COVID. Okay. And I signed up, and I think it was like 6 people maybe.
That's awesome.
And it was great because for an introvert like me, I really enjoy having a smaller room to be in. I think part of the issue with the Worcester one, it was just so big, for the first one to go to, probably not my
it can be intimidating.
Smartest move, but so that's how I got in with. I'm not a member of the chamber, but I've been going to these business after hours, and this past year I've been trying to make it a habit to go at least once a month, to sign up for the business after hours once a month.
Yeah, nice.
And I know they're starting up again for Wachusett next month, I believe.
Yep.
So I'll probably see you there next month. But
as
far as the creatives that I know in the area, I Google them.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to know who's out there. I want to know who I'm competing against, and I also want to make friends with my enemies. You know.
I love it. Well, that's like how our industry is. Like, we're very collaborative. I feel. I think there's plenty of business to go around. We're all just looking for clients that are right for us.
Yep.
So if we can have relationships with people who we trust to send over to the other guy and know that they're in good hands, like that's what the good companies are doing, at least.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody in this field is just very welcoming. So I would reach out to, other graphic design entrepreneurs and companies, and I'd ask them to coffee. I'd ask them to, for me to pick their brain a bit on how they're doing this, I feel like I'm kind of a latecomer in the whole freelance game. So I wanted to learn from those who were doing it, for a while before me. And I've met some really awesome people. And I try and stay in touch as much as possible through the networking events, or just reaching out every once in a while to see how they're doing or get together. And that's provided me with some work sometimes too, so it's been great, and I love the Worcester County area. There's been such growth in the past few years, as everybody's seen, with the small businesses. There's been ups and downs for sure, but I think more ups really than downs, and I want to be a part of that. Yep.
No, I appreciate it. I have appreciated getting to know you over the last few months. Thank you again for coming. Oh, I also wanted to say thank you so much for the article.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, that's right. So that's another piece of my networking is I've started, I've had a blog on my website for a while, but nobody knows about it, nobody reads it, which is fine, because you kind of need to start that way anyway. You don't want a million eyes on your stuff 100%. As you're, failing.
Exhibit A, the Namra podcast. I doubt one person made it this far, but if you did, we love you, and we're going to be with you for 10 more years.
Yeah, if I made it this far, you can make it. So with my blog, I was trying to think of ideas on how I could blog more consistently. And so I thought of the idea of an interview series with the people that I'm meeting at these networking events. And so every month I'll put out, an email to the people I've met, just asking them if they want to answer 7 simple questions about how they started their business, where it's going, what their marketing tips are, and I publish it on my site, and then I send it out through my newsletter, and I post it on social media, so that it's not really about me, but it's kind of about me. It's I want to spread the word about these amazing, fantastic entrepreneurs I've been learning about. Because I believe that everybody, needs these services, and there's a lot of creatives in our field that want to learn about how they started their companies.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this reciprocal thing that's been happening, and I'm excited that people want to do it like yourself.
No, I mean, I appreciated it, right when you reached out. I know how much effort it takes to put something like that together. So totally appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
it's sort of it's exactly what we do with the podcast, like once I've met you a few times at the chamber, I'm like, yeah, come on. Like, I want to get to know you. I want other people to get to know you. And so that's what it's all about. Like, bringing each other up.
Exactly. I think that's the nature of business,
for sure.
For any business, really, is
absolutely.
Just getting to know each other and making it work. And if it doesn't work, there's somebody else there that can, help you out instead. I think, like you said, there's enough work to go around, and there's enough clients to go around, and it's been a fun little side project, to dive into.
Totally. And it totally elevates the trust that the clients have in us too, because they know that they're in good hands no matter who we send them to. And that is a massive piece, because they're lying to you if they say they can do everything. Like, there's no marketing company who can truly provide full service in every aspect. Like, we all have our specialties, and networking and finding good people to refer our clients to is a very hard thing to do. It's taken us years to develop the connections that we've had. We've had to do right by all the people who were sent to us by other connections. Like, that is obviously huge. You can't just say you're great. You have to also deliver and, hold the client's hand and do a good job to get the next referral. All that stuff is super huge.
It's an exercise in patience, really.
Yeah, it really is. We had a guy, Corridor 9 chamber, me and Taylor, my business partner, did a social media workshop seminar in like 2017. And guy called us 2 weeks ago, a referral from another client, but had remembered us from this seminar that we did and closed him on a video.
Wow. Yep.
So we've been farming since 2017.
It's a
I
long
called
game.
Taylor to tell him. I was like, dude, you are not going to believe this. It's all paying off. Like, it's all you need is one to like come out of the woodworks like that, and you're like, all right, we are on the right track. We like it all will pay off. You know, all those little things.
Oh yeah.
Add up.
How did the seminar go?
Probably horrible. No, we knew our stuff back then. We were also we were good even back then at being honest about what we could and couldn't do.
Okay.
And so we were just like in a position where we were helping small businesses just get their pages up and running, and we weren't doing high level video production at that time at all. So we were definitely just talking about like, don't accidentally make 2 business pages because like eventually you're going to hire us and then we're going to find it and we're going to have to delete it. Yeah. So like do all that right, like teaching people about profile pictures and cover photos. Like we were doing just bare basics like setup and like first year stuff. Yep. But I have one planned with the Corridor 9 chamber, which I haven't announced yet. We're still kind of in the planning phase, but it's going to be like in November, December, where I kind of want to take it a little deeper, where we hit like different stages of business. So like one of them would be like, okay, you're in year 1 to 5 and your budget is like in this range, like under $1,000 a month, and then you're like a 5 to 10 year business. Now you have like $2,500 a month, or like maybe $3-4 grand a month, and like now what do you do with that, and like how do you not blow it? Because you see so many people who it's very easy to spend that money inefficiently, whether it's with Google ads that you don't know how to run, or a video and then a Facebook boost that you didn't implement properly. Like it can be wasted so easily, but it can also at that level be used very efficiently. Like all you need is a few grand a month and you're in decent shape to like get going, you know? And then I'm going to do a higher level one where it's like you could hire a full-time employee at like 5-10 grand a month, or you could hire like a full-blown like company like us where we can do all of your video, all your posting at like a really high level, which we don't even really have a lot of clients in that range yet, but we want to. And we know how to handle it now. We've got enough experience at the mid-level where we could take somebody on for what would have been like a pretty high-level full-time salary and deliver on it and beat what that one guy would have been able to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we'll see. I have to put that whole, I have it in my head, but I have to put that whole like curriculum down on paper for them, and so stay tuned.
Nice.
But it would be cool if we end up doing like a full day one. This one's like an hour and a half, so I have to really crunch it.
That'd be cool. That would be awesome.
But bringing you in on like the design side, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd love that. You mentioned business pages and how people sometimes create 2 of them, you know, accidentally. I was actually having this discussion with my wife the other day where how do you feel about businesses using their business page as their website?
So, okay, I'll put it this way. Like, for the first 6 months of you being in business, sure. Like, if you don't know how to build a website, I would do the same thing. I don't know how to build a website, and I have $0. So, I'm going to use a Facebook page. It's free, you know? It's not sustainable. You should have a website, for sure.
Even if it's, $10 a month website or something, something.
The whole purpose, we talk about this a lot, not a lot, but we've mentioned it. The whole purpose of social media is to drive traffic to the website.
Exactly.
Right? So there's got to be somewhere to go, whether it's got to be some call to action. You know, you could get away with just a Facebook page and like a Google business listing where people could call you still and get directions and like check you out on Facebook and see, who you are. You could. But a website's just like a mark of professionalism. So you maybe don't need to go super high end, but you should have something.
And I think we look up restaurants a lot. We're foodies. We like to go out and eat. And a lot of the times, restaurants just use the Facebook page as their business page, and we can't find their menu because it's buried in all their photos. So that's
the menu folder.
That's example photos, one to get a website so you know where it is. You can go there all the time, and also reservations. I don't know if you can make reservations on Facebook. Probably not, right? Unless you
click
on the phone number.
If you made your website your OpenTable account, so
Yeah.
people could, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we're
yeah.
splitting hairs. You
Yeah,
shouldn't do any
exactly.
of that. You should have, because you do just straight up look sketchy.
Yeah.
If you don't have a site for people to click on, and
Yeah.
it's just like blurry cell phone photos,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
know, on
yeah.
the Facebook page and Google, it's like,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know, you could, I'm saying you could do it
Yeah.
for the first couple months,
Yeah.
but
yeah, no, and for me with the websites I create, it's usually with a client who starts out with a Facebook page and or maybe an Instagram account, and say they're a photographer or something, and they want to show more. It's super important to have that presence online, that permanent presence. That way you're owning it. And I kind of liken it to if you're driving down the street and you're going by a strip mall and just it looks abandoned, but maybe they are open. You just would never know because it doesn't have that same appeal as having an actual like glowing sign on the it's a lot of branding is all about perception. And that like I mentioned before, the discovery session that I have with my clients, it's trying to figure out where they are on that scale of perception. How do they want to be perceived to attract the audience that they want to attract?
Yeah. A lot of times we have to remind our clients that it's not just your website that your customer is looking at now. It's not like they saw your ad and you're the only one in town, and so they're checking your site out and they call you. They have your website open and they have 9 other tabs.
Yep.
All of your competitors.
Exactly.
And they're comparing all of them. So it's a cutthroat industry. Like the design of your site, the flow of it needs to be professional. Dustin.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I met him. Yeah.
obviously me and Dustin are close, and he works with a lot of our clients and vice versa. We talk about that all the time. Like during the website consultations, he always mentions that fact. Like it's not just your site, it's yours and then 8 other tabs.
Yeah.
So it's got to be pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A lot of times also websites break down over time. You start adding to them, you start adding more pages, more content,
Yep.
and things shift and get kind of askew.
Yeah.
And depending on the platform you're using, that could, it could happen pretty quickly.
Do you help on the development side too?
Depending on what it is. So like my website is hosted on WordPress,
Yeah.
but I don't really like to get into the code too much. I know it. I just don't want to do it.
That's cool that you even know it. I wish
yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah. I mean, my cousin taught it to me when I was in high
That's
school.
awesome.
So I have that background of HTML and CSS.
That's sweet.
So I can get in under the hood and
Yeah.
fix things if I needed to,
Yeah.
and customize it a little bit. But for a lot of the clients I work with, they usually have a Wix or a Squarespace site that I'm not a big believer in kind of trying to convince them to change platforms if they're comfortable with what they're using. So I will help them out and kind of get under their hood and figure out, the best way to, but a lot of times with that, again, you're giving the reins back to them, and things can go wrong. But I don't want them to have to move out of something that they're comfortable with, or move out of a price point that they don't really need to, just for the sake of it,
Yeah. If they don't need to,
Yeah.
you shouldn't. It depends on like if they're trying to really drive more traffic to the site, then it may need some like higher level functionality and like a new workflow, which requires a custom build and design.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they're just taking calls and the website is just for contact information and like a contact form,
Yep.
you don't need more than Wix and Squarespace.
Exactly. And unless they're trying to be like Amazon with a million different products on it, that's a totally different,
that's a whole different conversation.
Platform, and that's a different person entirely.
That's Dustin.
Exactly.
We've worked with Dustin
Yes.
on a couple big e-commerce projects, and those have been fun.
Yeah, I've heard he's good. I haven't
he's
used
great.
him yet, but I've had some conversations with him. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's actually probably going to be my next interview.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well deserved.
Yeah.
No, he's phenomenal, and he does. Has he told you about Webflow?
Yes.
Do you know about Webflow?
Oh yeah. I'm actually digging into Webflow for myself.
Sweet.
Yeah,
I mean,
as we speak.
I can't get under the hood and tell you what goes on under there, but
Yeah.
from what I've seen, and like I can tell based on just usability on my phone and on the Mac,
Yeah.
it's clean and it's snappy.
Yeah,
and like it just doesn't slow down. Like you can feel WordPress is just clunkier a little,
Yeah.
and then Webflow ones, you just scroll quick. It's just, I don't know, something about it. It's like, all right, that feels better.
Yeah, I'm hoping to transition over to Webflow with my own site. And, I think it's good to, to use for future clients too.
Yeah.
Just, it seems like their CMS capabilities are fantastic, and that's one of the reasons I'm looking into it too, is that, you can have the control of the design and just hand off the editing capabilities to your client, so that they just can input the content into these boxes and it'll all populate.
Yeah, it's sort of like what the client thinks they're going to get.
Exactly. Yeah, because they shouldn't be in charge of the design, and not because I don't think they're creative, because everybody's creative.
Yeah, but they always say, but I want to go in and make changes.
Exactly.
And so, but on WordPress, it's like you are giving a child the keys to a Lamborghini. Like, it's not going to go well if they go in and try to make changes.
Yeah, and I mean, with all the plugin updates in WordPress and everything like that, I'm growing frustrated with it. And I can only imagine what clients feel. I wouldn't want to have the keys to that if I was a client that didn't know anything about websites, So I think Webflow is probably the future, transition from the WordPress sites. I could see that happening, 10, 20 years down the road for sure. It seems like they're, just every day they're expanding and growing. So
I love it. Well, that's a whole other tangent we can go down. So we'll bring Dustin and we'll have a true nerd.
We should, let's do that.
So stay tuned for the next time David comes back. If anybody has questions for you, inquiries about a new logo, how can they contact you?
You can go to my website, davidgorhamdesign.com, and I'm on Instagram, and I recently joined Threads too, so you can find me there.
Nice.
I don't know if anybody's given that shout out.
I've done a few Threads.
Yeah.
No, you're the first thread tag.
Nice.
On the podcast for sure.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, it's just, I love, like I said, I love keeping things simple, and Threads
does keep it simple.
Is simple for now.
Yeah, until it just adds a bunch of features and becomes Facebook.
Yeah. If you guys want to keep in touch with me, you can go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. I send it out bi-monthly, so twice a month. You'll get my insights and some resources on all things branding and marketing.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks again for coming, man.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for listening, everyone. This has been the Namra Podcast. We'll see you on the next one.